Welcome to Revenge Coven, where betrayal meets its match and karma casts the final spell. Join our coven for weekly stories packed with shocking twists, emotional intensity, and the satisfying thrill of revenge done right. Thank you. I stood in my son Trevor's dining room, my fingers brushing the unfamiliar edge of a table that hadn't been there last month. 15 years of blindness had taught me to map spaces through touch and memory, but Trevor had remodeled without warning me. I reached for what should have been my water glass. Instead, my hand struck crystal, and I heard the sickening splash of red wine hitting fabric. Are you kidding me right now? Amanda's voice cut through the silence like broken glass. This dress cost $4,000. My hands trembled as I apologized, trying to find napkins that weren't where they used to be. Trevor sighed, heavy and theatrical, the kind of sound that carries more weight than words. Mom, this is exactly why we can't include you in normal family events. You're becoming a liability. My grandchildren, Sophie and Nathan, said nothing. That silence hurt worse than Amanda's screaming. I heard the scrape of chairs, the rustle of Amanda leaving the room. Trevor's cologne filled the space as he moved closer. We need to talk about where you're living, he said quietly. This situation isn't working anymore. I clutched my purse, feeling Beethoven's leash in my other hand. My guide dog pressed against my leg, sensing my distress. The morning after my birthday disaster, Trevor called at 8. His tone carried the practiced patience of someone addressing a confused child. Mom, Amanda, and I stayed up discussing your situation. Last night proved what we've suspected for months. You're not safe living independently anymore. I gripped the phone tighter. Trevor, I have Beethoven. I have systems that work perfectly. I've been managing fine for over a decade. You spilled wine on a guest during a formal dinner party. What if next time you cause a fire? What if you fall and nobody finds you for days? I heard Amanda's voice in the background, sharp and insistent. Trevor cleared his throat. We've found an excellent assisted living facility. 24-hour supervision, meals provided, medical staff on site. We've already scheduled a tour for this Saturday. My stomach clenched. Trevor, I don't need. Mom, please. Just come see it. For me. The guilt in his voice sounded genuine, but something underneath felt rehearsed. I heard papers shuffling, Amanda whispering urgently. Fine, I said. I'll look at it. As I hung up, Beethoven whined softly. I reached down to stroke his head, and my hand was shaking. Saturday arrived cold and gray. Trevor picked me up in his expensive car that smelled like new leather. Amanda came along, her perfume overwhelming in the confined space. The facility reeked of industrial cleaner and overcooked vegetables. A director with a cheerful voice spoke about me like I wasn't present. Many of our memory care residents transition beautifully. I'm blind, not cognitively impaired, I interrupted firmly. Trevor laughed awkwardly. Mom's still completely sharp mentally. We're just looking for somewhere with more supervision. They led me through hallways that echoed. I counted steps, memorizing the layout automatically. Then Trevor and Amanda fell behind, their voices dropping to whispers they thought I couldn't hear. But 15 years without sight had sharpened everything else. Amanda spoke first. Once she signs paperwork here, we can finally sell her apartment. That rent-controlled place is worth at least $500,000. Sophie's private school tuition is destroying us. Trevor responded quietly, I know. And with the power of attorney active, we can handle everything. The money, the property, all of it. Ice flooded my veins. My son wasn't protecting me. He was positioning me. I returned home with my heart hammering against my ribs. Beethoven settled at my feet as I sat at my computer, voice command software activating with a familiar beep. Open folder, professional files, I said clearly. The screen reader announced what Trevor had never discovered. For 12 years, I'd been one of the industry's most successful audiobook narrators under the name Monica Sterling. 362 best-selling titles. $894,000 in savings. I'd lived modestly, never mentioning it, Because Trevor had spent my entire blindness treating me like I was helpless. Why give him ammunition? My email inbox loaded. My agent had sent something marked urgent. A major streaming platform wanted exclusive rights to my voice for their artificial intelligence narrator program. The offer made my breath catch, $2.4 million upfront, plus ongoing royalties. But there was a catastrophic problem. Trevor held my power of attorney. If I signed this contract, he'd discover everything. And he was already planning to control my entire life. I called my lawyer, Helen Rodriguez, who'd quietly handled my contracts for years. I explained Trevor's power of attorney and what I'd overheard. Helen's voice turned ice cold. Barbara, this is extremely serious. If Trevor petitions a court claiming mental incompetence, he can have you declared unfit. Then he controls everything. Your money, your living situation, even your medical decisions. But I'm completely competent. Doesn't matter if he builds the right narrative. Has he been making comments about your memory lately? Your judgment. I thought back through recent months. Trevor had been dropping hints constantly. Mom forgot her appointment. Mom seemed confused about the date. He'd been constructing groundwork. Helen continued carefully. 5 months ago, Trevor came to my office asking about managing elderly parents' finances when they become dangerous to themselves. I refused to discuss it without you present. Now I understand, he's been planning this systematically. My hands felt numb. What do I do? Revoke his power of attorney immediately. But if he discovers you have significant assets, he'll escalate fast. We need strategy, not panic. I called Trevor back that evening. I let my voice shake, but this time, deliberately. Trevor, sweetheart, I've been thinking about everything you said. Maybe you're right. Maybe I do need more help. The relief in his voice was almost palpable. Mom, I'm so glad you're being reasonable about this. It's really what's best for everyone. We scheduled a family meeting for Sunday to finalize arrangements. Trevor thought he'd won. What he didn't know, I was recording every conversation now, high-quality audio files saved and backed up. And I'd already scheduled an emergency appointment with Helen for tomorrow morning. I also sent a carefully worded email to my agent about the streaming deal, with one critical instruction: hold all paperwork. Do not proceed without my explicit authorization. Will explain soon. That night, I lay awake listening to Beethoven's breathing. Somewhere in the darkness, I felt myself changing. The mother who'd always accommodated Trevor was disappearing. Someone harder was taking her place. Trevor pushed harder over the following days. Mom, they need $5,000 to hold the room. I can handle the deposit and we'll sort out finances later. You trust me, don't you? I hesitated perfectly, letting silence build. I suppose that makes sense. Great. I'll just need temporary access to your savings account. Of course, sweetheart. What Trevor didn't know, the account he believed contained my life savings actually held $3,400, just enough to appear legitimate. My real money sat locked in trusts he couldn't touch. 2 days later, Trevor attempted to transfer $5,000 from my account. The bank blocked it immediately. His power of attorney was no longer valid. He called within an hour, confusion bleeding into anger. Mom, the bank claims I don't have authorization for your account anymore. That's ridiculous. I'm your power of attorney. I played confused beautifully. That's very strange, honey. Maybe there's been some mistake. He called the bank. They confirmed the power of attorney had been revoked. Trevor's voice changed completely when he called back. Mom, did you revoke my power of attorney? Did I? I asked carefully. I don't remember doing that. Are you certain? I let him think I was confused, forgetful, exactly the narrative he'd been building. Except now it worked against him. This doesn't make any sense, Trevor muttered. I'm coming over. We need to talk about this immediately. He arrived within the hour. I heard 2 sets of footsteps. Amanda had come too. They settled on my couch, tension radiating through the room. Mom, something isn't adding up here. The power of attorney, the bank account. What's going on? I sat calmly in my chair, hands folded. I'm not sure what you mean, Trevor. Amanda's voice cut in sharply. Barbara, we're trying to help you, but you're making this incredibly difficult. If you're hiding something from us. Hiding what? I asked innocently. I'm just a blind woman living on disability checks. Trevor's frustration bubbled over. Then why can't I access your accounts anymore? Why would you revoke the one legal tool designed to protect you? I let silence stretch. Then, quietly, maybe because I heard what you said at the facility. About selling my apartment. About managing everything. The room went completely silent. Trevor recovered quickly. Too quickly for genuine surprise. Mom, you completely misunderstood. We were discussing hypothetical options, nothing concrete. We would never do anything without your full consent. Amanda added smoothly, you know how expensive everything is nowadays. We were simply exploring ways to help you afford better quality care. I let the lie hang in the air between us. So you weren't planning to use my apartment sale money for Sophie's tuition? Amanda's sharp inhale confirmed everything. Who told you that? You did. At the facility. I heard every single word. Trevor shifted tactics immediately. Mom, even if we mention that, we're family. Helping each other is what families do. You'd want Sophie to have the best education possible, wouldn't you? I stood up slowly. Beethoven rose with me, pressed against my leg. I think you both should leave now. I'll call when I'm ready to talk again. Trevor's voice turned cold in a way I'd never heard before. Fine. But this conversation isn't finished, Mom. Not even close. Their footsteps retreated. The door closed hard enough to rattle the frame. Over the next week, Trevor launched a quiet campaign. My sister Caroline called first, voice thick with concern. Barbara, Trevor's very worried about you. He says you're making accusations, being paranoid, refusing help. Is everything all right? I realized what he was doing, building a case for incompetency through family testimony. My nephew called next. Aunt Barbara, Trevor mentioned you're having serious memory problems? Then a cousin. I heard you had some kind of episode at a dinner party? Each call reinforced Derek's narrative. Mom is losing her mind. Mom needs intervention. Mom is dangerous to herself. Then a letter arrived. Helen read it to me over the phone, her voice tight with controlled anger. It was from an attorney representing Trevor Sullivan. They were petitioning for a competency hearing, claiming I was mentally unfit to manage my own affairs. The hearing was scheduled in 3 weeks. He's actually doing it, I said quietly. Helen's response surprised me. Good. Let him. We have Dr. Harrison's evaluation. We have recordings of his real motives. And now, we have something else. Helen had been investigating. Trevor and Amanda were drowning in debt, $197,000 across multiple credit cards. Sophie's private school tuition was 4 months overdue. They'd taken a second mortgage last year and were already behind on payments. They don't just want your apartment money, Barbara. They desperately need it. Helen paused. There's something else you should know. I found out who initially suggested assisted living facilities to Trevor. You won't believe this. She explained. 6 months ago, Trevor had consulted with a financial planner named Kenneth Wright, who specialized in what he called elder asset management. Wright's actual strategy involved getting elderly parents declared incompetent, seizing control of their assets, and liquidating property. Wright had been sued 3 times for elder exploitation. Nothing had stuck legally. Trevor had paid Wright $6,000 for a consultation on how to help his mother transition to care while preserving family assets. Helen had documentation of everything. Do you want to settle this quietly? Helen asked carefully. Or do you want Trevor to see exactly who he's been underestimating? I didn't hesitate. I want him to see everything. The courthouse was cold. I felt Trevor's presence across the room, his expensive cologne, the rustle of his suit. He sat with his attorney, radiating concerned devotion. The judge asked Trevor's lawyer to present evidence of my incompetency. They brought testimony from Trevor about forgotten appointments, confusion about finances, dangerous living conditions. The wine spill incident got reframed as inability to function safely. Amanda testified next, voice trembling with practiced emotion. She seems lost sometimes, genuinely disoriented. We're terrified for her safety. It sounded convincing. I sensed the judge's pity directed toward me. Then Helen stood. Your Honor, we'd like to present counter-evidence. Beginning with Dr. Harrison's comprehensive competency evaluation. She submitted the neuropsychological report. The judge read silently. I heard pages turning, the scratch of pen on paper. Then Helen played the recordings. The courtroom filled with Trevor and Amanda's voices from the facility hallway. Once she signs paperwork here, we can sell her apartment. With the power of attorney active, we can handle everything. I couldn't see Trevor's face, but I heard his sharp intake of breath. Helen continued methodically, Your Honor, this case isn't about Barbara Sullivan's competency. This is about financial exploitation by her own son. She presented documentation of Trevor's massive debt. The consultation with Kenneth Wright. The systematic construction of a false narrative about my mental state. Mr. Sullivan has been building a case for months, Helen stated. Not because his mother needs help, but because he needs her money. The judge's voice turned ice cold. Mr. Sullivan, I'm dismissing this petition immediately. Furthermore, I'm ordering a formal investigation into possible elder exploitation. Do you understand the severity of what you've attempted here? Trevor's voice came out strangled. Your Honor, I was trying to protect. You were trying to steal, the judge interrupted. This hearing is concluded. Outside afterward, I waited by Helen's car. I heard Trevor approaching, his footsteps uneven. You recorded us? His voice shook with rage or fear. I couldn't tell which. You've been planning this whole thing? No, I said calmly. I've been protecting myself. There's a difference. Amanda appeared beside him. You humiliated us in front of a judge. How could you do this to your own son? I turned toward Amanda's voice. How could you plan to warehouse me so you could steal my home? Trevor's voice cracked. We weren't stealing. We're family, we share. Sharing requires asking, Trevor. What you were planning is called theft. Amanda's voice dropped to a hiss. You're going to regret this. You just lost your son. And your grandchildren. I hope your precious money keeps you warm at night. They left. I stood in the parking lot, Helen's hand on my arm, and felt my chest tighten. Because despite everything, Amanda might be right. I'd won legally, but I'd lost my family. 3 days passed in hollow silence. Then my doorbell rang unexpectedly. I opened it to find Sophie, my 14-year-old granddaughter, crying on my doorstep. Grandma, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Dad told us you were sick, that you were confused and making things up. I didn't know he was lying. She explained everything through tears. Trevor and Amanda had confiscated the children's phones after the hearing. They'd been told I was unstable, trying to manipulate everyone. But Sophie had snuck out. She needed to see me herself. Sophie sat on my couch, Beethoven's head in her lap. Dad's been weird for months. Always angry about money. Mom's constantly stressed. They fight about bills every night. I heard them talking about your apartment before, but I didn't understand what it meant. She paused. Grandma, is it true you're rich? Dad said you've been hiding money from the family. I sat beside her carefully. Your father didn't believe a blind woman could accomplish anything meaningful. He didn't think I could take care of myself, let alone build a career. So when I did, I didn't tell him. Because I knew he'd try to control it. Sophie was quiet for a long moment. What kind of career? I hesitated, then made a decision. I walked to my computer and played something, one of my recent audiobook recordings. A best-selling fantasy novel Sophie had mentioned loving. Her gasp was audible. That's you? You're Monica Sterling? Oh my God, Grandma, you're famous. I've listened to probably 40 of your books. For the first time in weeks, I smiled genuinely. Sophie grabbed my hands. You have to tell people. You have to show Dad how wrong he was about you. And I realized she was absolutely right. With Helen's guidance, I did something I'd never considered. I went public. I wrote an essay for a major online publication, The Voice You Know, The Woman You Don't, How Blindness Made Me Invisible to My Own Son. I detailed the exploitation attempt without naming Trevor directly, but with enough specificity that people in our social circle would know. I discussed ableism, assumptions, and how society views disabled people as incapable burdens. The essay went viral within hours. Interview requests flooded in. National radio, major newspapers, podcast hosts. The audiobook community rallied around me immediately. Best-selling authors I'd narrated tweeted support. Readers shared stories of listening to my work for years without knowing my background. Then the streaming platform called. Ms. Sterling, we'd like to proceed with the contract. But we have one additional request. We want to feature your story prominently in our marketing campaign. They wanted my face and voice everywhere. Billboards, digital ads, television commercials. The tagline, the voice that wouldn't be silenced. I said yes. The campaign launched 2 weeks later. My face appeared on billboards across the city. Subway advertisements. YouTube pre-roll videos. They interviewed me extensively about overcoming blindness, building a secret career, and fighting financial exploitation. Trevor couldn't escape it. His colleagues saw it. His neighbors saw it. Amanda's entire social circle saw it. The narrative Trevor had constructed, helpless, confused mother, was publicly demolished. I received a message through a neighbor from Nathan, my 11-year-old grandson. Grandma, you're on TV. Dad turned it off really fast, but I saw. You're like a superhero. Trevor finally called a week later. His voice sounded smaller, diminished. Mom, can we talk? In person, just us. He came to my apartment alone. I heard him sit heavily on my couch. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I waited. I'm sorry for how things got so complicated. I genuinely thought I was doing what was best for you. No, I said gently but firmly. You wanted what was best for yourself. There's a significant difference. He tried again. I was worried about your safety. Trevor, I have recordings. I have documentation. I know exactly what you wanted. Please don't insult me by lying now. Long silence filled the room. Then he said something that genuinely broke my heart. Did you ever actually need me? Or was this whole thing just some kind of test? I answered honestly, I've never needed you to manage my life, Trevor. I needed you to respect it. Those are completely different things. He sat quietly for what felt like an eternity. Amanda thinks I should cut all ties with you permanently. She says you humiliated our entire family. I protected myself from exploitation. If that humiliates you, you should examine why. Trevor stood to leave. At the door, he paused. The kids miss you. Sophie especially. Then let them visit. I don't know if that's appropriate right now. My heart sank, but I refused to beg. Trevor, I said as he opened the door, when you're ready for a real relationship, one built on respect instead of control, I'm here. But I'm finished being treated like a burden. He left without responding. 6 months passed. The streaming deal finalized, $2.4 million, exactly as promised. I used a portion to establish a foundation, scholarships for blind students pursuing creative careers. I funded audiobook training programs. I mentored aspiring narrators with disabilities. Sophie visited regularly now. At 15, she was recording practice audiobooks with me. Her talent was remarkable. Nathan sent drawings weekly, illustrations of scenes from books I narrated. Trevor and I hadn't spoken once. Amanda had blocked my number completely. Trevor's voice was hollow. I've been in therapy for 3 months, trying to understand why I did what I did. My therapist asked me something that I couldn't answer. When exactly did you stop seeing your mother as a person? His voice cracked. I don't know when it happened, Mom. But somewhere along the way, I started seeing you as a problem to solve instead of just seeing you. I remained quiet, letting him continue. I can't undo anything I did. I understand that completely. But I want to try building something different. If you'll let me. I thought about revenge. About doors closed forever. About the satisfaction of permanent rejection. Then I thought about Sophie and Nathan. About the life I'd successfully built. About the fact that I didn't need Trevor's validation anymore, which meant I could choose to give him a chance without losing myself. I'm willing to try, I said carefully. But things are fundamentally different now. I'm not the mother who needs saving. I'm the woman who saved herself. If you can genuinely accept that, we can start again. He nodded, and I heard tears in his voice. I can accept that. I want to accept that. We started slowly. Trevor came for coffee once a week. We talked carefully, like strangers learning each other's language. He told me about therapy, about recognizing how financial stress had poisoned his judgment. About how Amanda had pushed constantly, but he'd made his own choices. I told him about my career, about the satisfaction of building something nobody expected. About learning that love doesn't mean surrender. Sophie and Nathan started visiting together with Trevor. We recorded audiobook samples. Nathan showed me his artwork, describing colors and shadows in detail that helped me see through his eyes. One afternoon, Trevor asked quietly, "Mom, would you consider narrating something I wrote? Just a short story. Nothing professional, just for me." I smiled. I'd be honored. He'd written a story about a son who learns to see his mother clearly for the first time. It was clumsy in places, too sentimental in others. But it was honest. I recorded it in one take, my voice steady. When I finished, Trevor was crying. "Thank you," he whispered. Months continued passing. Trevor and I built something new, not the old relationship, but something more honest. He attended my foundation events. He volunteered at the audiobook training programs. He watched Sophie practice narration with genuine pride instead of condescension. One evening, Trevor brought dinner to my apartment. As we ate, he said, "Mom, I need to tell you something. Amanda's lawyer contacted me about the divorce settlement. She wants to claim you manipulated me, that you're responsible for our marriage ending." I set down my fork. "What did you tell them?" I told them the truth. That I made choices based on greed and desperation. That you protected yourself legally and rightfully. That our marriage failed because we built it on debt and dishonesty, not because you defended yourself. His voice was firm. "I'm not letting her blame you for my mistakes." I reached across the table, finding his hand. "Thank you." We sat in comfortable silence. Beethoven snored softly at my feet. Trevor spoke again. "I've been thinking about going back to school. Maybe studying social work. Helping families navigate difficult situations with elderly parents." I smiled. "That sounds perfect for you." A year after the court hearing, the streaming platform hosted a major launch event for their artificial intelligence narrator program. They'd asked me to speak. I stood on stage, Beethoven beside me, speaking to hundreds of people I couldn't see. For 15 years, people assumed my blindness meant helplessness. My own son believed I couldn't manage my own life. And I let that narrative exist because fighting it seemed exhausting. My voice carried across the silent auditorium. But here's what I learned: the people who underestimate you aren't worth performing for. Build your life anyway. Create your success anyway. Protect yourself anyway. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, Trevor found me backstage. "Mom, that was incredible. I'm so proud of you." "I'm proud of you too," I said honestly, "for doing the hard work of changing." Sophie hugged me tightly. "Grandma, when I grow up, I want to be exactly like you." I laughed. "Be better than me. Be someone who never has to hide their accomplishments." We went to dinner together afterward, all four of us. A family rebuilt on truth instead of obligation. It's been 2 years now since that disastrous birthday dinner. I'm 70 years old, and my life looks nothing like I imagined. The foundation has funded 83 scholarships. We've trained over 200 narrators with disabilities. My voice is genuinely changing the industry. Trevor completed his social work degree. He works with families navigating elder care, helping them avoid the mistakes he made. We talk almost daily now. Sophie is 17, already narrating audiobooks professionally under my mentorship. Nathan is 13, illustrating book covers with remarkable skill. Sometimes Trevor and I talk about what happened. He doesn't make excuses anymore. He owns his choices completely. "I'm sorry," he said recently, "that you had to fight so hard to prove your worth to me." "I didn't prove my worth to you," I corrected gently. "I proved it to myself. There's a difference." He smiled. "You're right. As usual." Here's what I learned through everything. The best revenge isn't cruelty or permanent rejection. It's becoming so undeniably successful that people who underestimated you have no choice but to see you clearly. And then, if you're strong enough, choosing grace anyway. Not because they deserve it, but because you do. Because living well isn't just the best revenge. It's the best life.